Well, we turn again to Butterworth for the last song and for the lads in their hundreds. Again, this is quite a simple, sort of clear song, isn't it? Lucid song compared to the Gurney, but there is this tremendously poignant image at the heart of it.
Heartbreaking, yeah.
But also, I think it's quite interesting that the Houseman poetry, so much of Houseman's poetry is all about young men when they reach a certain age, and then the betrayal. It's almost a sort of loss of innocence in a way, which is, of course, this is something that later composers like Britten, of course, were very hooked on, the whole thing of loss of innocence. But Houseman features it all the time. There are so many of the songs in the Vaughan Williams set as well in On Wenlock Hedge, and they always tend to be that somebody has been betrayed or somebody has died, and it's always at this early 20s time, which is another, obviously, because that's when most of our soldiers are killed at that age, because that's the sort of thing.
It does put an interesting different slant on Britain's fascination with this from the one that's normally affixed to it.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Absolutely. Well, maybe we should hear then this last song, please, of George Butterworth. Okay then, over to you for questions, if there's anything you'd like to ask any of us, particularly our performers. Oh, Ian, always keen.
Thank you, and beautiful. And I wanted to just remind everybody that the songs we've just heard are a taster for the concert at 6 o'clock. We hear the 4 Gurney songs that he actually wrote while he was in the trenches, and 2 Butterworth songs. A little bit about the poems. I love this idea of all these men going off to war with their packs full of poetry. And clearly the poems that Gurney used, well, one was his own, one was, I don't know who it was a fellow, Will Harvey, who was a fellow soldier who'd gone missing at the time. And there's Walter Raleigh as well, I think.
Yes, that's by a beerside,
Were these poems that he would have taken with him or remembered from home?
Well, I think a lot of them were in his head.
Yes.
I think that, like so many young artists of that. He immersed himself in poetry, in English poetry.
But he did have a pretty prodigious memory as well, Gurney. Yes.
So that obviously the odd word slips can easily be forgiven when they're all stored up in their head, in his head.
In a lot of the scores, they give the alternative word,
the real word underneath.
Yeah.
But I think there's such a thing as a creative misremembering as well.
Yes.
So, I think we ought to honour what they come up with rather than going back to some.
But also, having said that, in Ludlow and Team in particular, which is the cycle for tenor and string quartets and piano, there are so many mistakes, both musically as well. It's quite a job to work out what I think he wasn't always so careful when he wrote things out, or what he really wanted, or maybe he just changed it and then the bit got changed but another bit didn't, and there's quite a discrepancy, really.
Philip Lancaster has recently brought out a new edition of Ludlow and Team, and he's kind of really tried to I think get back to the original and make it work.
And I promised to pass on to somebody else in a second, but I just wanted to say something in support of trees. I mean, we were talking about the loveliness of trees and how it was not really to do with the war, but trees actually is one of the themes we picked up for the City London Festival in the conflict and resolution context, because in fact trees really suffered incredible damage during all these conflicts. In the First World War, just forests just completely destroyed. In Dubrovnik, the walls were not actually damaged too badly, but the entire historic arboretum went. So there's something rather nice about having the loveliest of trees.
Yes, and when you see the image, those First World War films, when you see the newsreel or whatever, and you see these sort of broken stumps of trees and nothing to be seen for mile after mile but mud and the rest of it, then you can imagine that you needed a poem to remind you perhaps of what things do look like when you're not in the middle of that sort of conflict.
Thanks, Christian.
This is just an observation, and I don't know whether it's at all accurate, but I've been told, having visited St. Petersburg a great deal, that when the siege of Leningrad ended and there was the scorched earth policy, as you know, all the what are called the suburban palaces were burnt. They burnt all the trees, so that within a radius of about 30 or 40 miles of St. Petersburg, there aren't trees that are older than 70 years. It's absolutely, it was almost like it was raping the countryside.
Yes, quite.
Yes.
I wanted to say that on the Thietval Memorial, there's a database there run by an English couple, and there's a huge file on Butterworth, which they'll put on you, but I'm going to put something on about William Manson, photographs, songs and other things. After people have got Academy of Music's Manson Ensemble and Manson Ruminate. If anyone else wants an address for any other musician who was there, like to contribute, people in the database, people's name. And I think part of the Treaty of Versailles, as I understood, also had something to do with German reparations and the rebuilding of forest.
Right.
Yes. Anybody else? Yes, question over there.
Thank you very much for a whole interesting day. I would, however, like some reassurance that our national anthem hasn't changed. It's been worrying me all day. We might think Rule Britannia, it would be a better national anthem, but that hasn't happened, has it? I want to ask whether, as we've now heard some voices, would participating in a choir have the same effect as listening to music for people? And then my last question is, the great cyber war that we're all going to have is sitting in one continent, pressing a button that deals with another continent 4,000 miles away. Is that going to be less traumatic for the person pressing the button? Thank you.
Oh, goodness
I don't
me.
think I can answer any of those questions.
Well, I think we could honestly say that none of us feel remotely competent to answer any of those questions, except that I rather like Billy Connolly's suggestion that we should use the Archers theme tune as our national anthem. I mean, what on earth all that stuff is going to do to the nature of war? I suspect that it will bring different kinds of traumas. Except for the people on the receiving end, of course,
yes, right. That's
which
pretty
is another
immediate
matter.
to them,
Yes. That's something that doesn't seem to change.
There is actually, can I just say, there is a wonderful memorial to Butterworth. I think it's in Radley School,
Yes.
where was he a pupil and did he teach there? I think he was a music master there.
I don't know about that.
Well,
yes,
anyway,
yes, I think
there's
was.
a fantastic memorial, all made up of broken glass, and I've been in the school at Radley, in the music department. I forget what it's called, but it's a beautiful, and and there's some fragments of manuscript in that. It's one of the Houseman settings, I think, or maybe it's Bank of Green Willow.
Bank of Willow,
I think, but it's a most beautiful memorial, and if you just look at it, I defy anybody not to be absolutely. It takes your breath away.
So just to offer a quick answer to these two questions, from a simple scientific point of view, yes, there is quite a lot of evidence that singing in choirs helps you in your body. The lovely hormone which we see women secrete, lactate, oxytocin, is in all of us, and singing in choirs is particularly provocative of oxytocin, the well-being feelings, if that helps. Not that a chemical exchange of feelings, but rather that at least we can measure that. On the question of the cyber war, there's also a body of evidence, Susan Greenfield is very good on this, that we are indeed preparing our kids to fight this war because they're all busy on their machines and Xboxes killing zombies and one another at the push of a button. And so the desensitization process and preparation for such a war is already advancing. Thank you.
I could say something.
Thank you, Anna. Would like to say something, I think, too.
Just to the lady's question about singing in a choir, just on Nigel's point. I sing in a choir, and our choir took part in a study that a friend of mine did. She's a neuroscientist and does various things, but she took swabs from all of us and tested it for cortisol. I'm sure all the scientists here will. And it was absolutely unanimous from everybody in the choir that the levels of cortisol our stress went down. The cortisol levels went down. Every single person in the study, so it's absolute proof that, and obviously they took the swab before the choir practice and after, and in every single person, the degrees were obviously variable, but the stress levels went down. So.
I've just remembered, I don't know if any of you know, an extraordinarily powerful short piece by Arnold Schoenberg, written after the end of the Second World War, called A Survivor from Warsaw. And it's a truly horrific piece. It's mostly related in Schoenbergian Sprechstimme, that's speech song, like ringmaster speech, about a man's narration of escaping with his life from one of the purges in the ghettos in Warsaw, I believe. And the truly amazing moment, it describes the redemptive moment, you might almost say, is when he says suddenly that the people in question all started to sing, and suddenly the chorus comes belting in with the old psalm, Shema Israel. And that is, I think almost viscerally powerful reminder, Nigel's nodding, of just how extraordinary music can be, even in extreme situations like that. Reducing maybe the stress for these people in this appalling situation.
Got to think of the famous example of the orchestra or the musicians aboard the Titanic playing as the ship went under the waves. It's to try and calm everybody down, and so music does have that power, to do so many things to
Yes.
and to take us out of the situation into somewhere else, however short that may be. But it takes you away from the immediacy of what's happening.
Yeah.
Black American spirituals too. I mean, a lot's been written about coded messages in these and all sorts of other elements might have been, but you can't get away from the idea that they must have been an intense source of relief for the people involved. Well, I think that's all we have time for, Michael. Yes. Well, thank you very much indeed, Adrian and Anna, for talking and singing to us both today.